one last time this year. Welcome, bones and ghouls, to IndieWeen, that special time where, in protest of the high price to low entertainment value of modern games in the AAA scene, I go and find us a bunch of indie games for every weekend of October, and when we add up all their prices, they'll all total to be less than the price of a single AAA release. This year I might have accidentally gone $1 and change over, but with the sheer number of games I found this year that I've been able to show you for a smidge over $70, I think I've more than proven my point. Today, we're saving something extra tasty for last. Lunacid. Lunacid is a throwback to not just older Souls games, but an homage to the progenitors of the Soul game, King's Field. It's an exceptionally comfy first-person dungeon crawl made by Kira, whose works I've gone over in the past because if there was anyone who truly nails that haunted PS1 aesthetic, it's them. Lunacid has you playing as someone who is dropped into a big ol' hole, because that's what you do when you've got a big ol' hole. You drop stuff you don't want into it. The hole is a result of the moon getting a little silly and dumping some stuff into the earth, which not only brought us into a dystopian age of magic, but also gave us the big hole to throw things into. We're gonna try and get out of this place, but maybe instead we'll see what's at the bottom of it. You know what also is something that's hard to get to the bottom of? You know what? No, I've already fulfilled the rule of 3 on these fake outs, so I'll save us both some time. This month I've decided that every video is going to have a meal prep tutorial for the cooking segment, and that in the name of helping people get better at meal prep and saving money, and just be a little healthier in general, the standalone videos for the cooking segments on the Patreon with their full recipes and also cost and nutrient breakdowns will be 100% free for everyone. I'll have a pinned link in the comments. Now let's get into Lunacid. Lunacid is a first-person sword and sorcery game, with the player character being allowed to equip 2 weapons and 2 spells at any given time. I should also specify that you can only use one of those 2 weapons at a time, because you lost your hand in the intro. Your torch counts as a weapon, and before you get other means of lighting an area, you're gonna need that on you at all times. It is dark in some of these areas. Where Dread Delusion was an open-world adventure, Lunacid is a dungeon crawl in its purest form. Maps are labyrinthine and chock full of secrets and treasure. There will be dark temples. There will be magical forests. And of course, there will be a poison swamp. There will also even be those friggin' guys from Dark Souls 3. You know them. These guys. You know what they do. I hate them. While you can walk all the way from the starting zone to the very end of the game, there are save crystals which will not only heal you, but act as the fast travel points once you find them. But before you can even do that, in the beginning of the game you pick your character portrait, which you can also add your own image if you'd like, and then your class. For the most part, classes determine your starting stats, which are fairly easily overridden with some good old-fashioned level grinding. But they also determine your resistances, which you're stuck with. For the most part, resistances and weaknesses are fairly tame. However, there are some more interesting classes that have more extreme resistances and weaknesses, such as the undead, who are outright immune to some status effects, and the vampire, who among other things is able to get free heals from sources of blood like these fountains in the manor. I played as a knight with a strength int build because while I like to bonk, magic is very useful in Lunacid. On that note, the number of points per level up varies, with you starting out with I believe 3 in the early levels, but there are soft and hard caps on these points later on, and the points you will put into stats will have an immediate impact on parts of your gameplay, so spend wisely. Strength is bonks, and intelligence is not just your magic damage, but also how fast you can cast a spell and the size of your mana pool. For example, in the early game, Firebolt takes a couple seconds of charge up to use, but once you've really invested points into your int stat, it's basically a semi-automatic spell. Careful with your mana burn when you're machine gunning Firebolts though. Dexterity is less about katanas and stuff, and is more about how high you can jump and how much air control you have when you jump. Certain areas and paths are outright inaccessible if you don't put enough points into Dex unless you get extremely determined with a certain blood magic spell. Speed is, well, your run speed. And I think you get the rest. There's not a whole lot of crazy stuff beyond that. Lunacid is also kind enough to have an actual manual. And on top of that, you don't need to tab out to Steam or wherever it is because it's always available in the options menu. It's not the most detailed thing ever, but it does have all the things you need, such as control breakdowns, explanations on all the elements and their resistances, and how mechanics like lunacy work, which we'll talk about more later. I always appreciate a good manual, and I really wish more games would do stuff just like this. Lunacid is a game that is all about exploring the dungeons within the big ol' hole, and all the dungeons have pathways to others and plenty of things to discover within them. Yes, you can climb to the treetops in the forest. You can also find friendly NPCs like Garrett over here, who's basically our Ziegward for this game. There are spells to find in secret passages, and there are dudes to bonk with heavy weapons that you find. Another cool thing that Lunacid does is that on top of gaining experience to level yourself up, some weapons will be able to gain experience too, and once you hit a certain threshold with them, you can take them back to Wing's Rest and turn them into new, better versions of the weapon you have. The Stone Club goes from a slow downgrade to the starting sword to a serviceable melee weapon as the Iron Club, and the strongest non-secret bonk stick in the game as the Steel Club. Most areas will have at least 1 or 2 weapons to find and then upgrade, and some enemies will even have a chance to drop special weapons that, once upgraded, will be especially handy. Now it's time to talk about the moon. Not the in-game one just yet that's doing all that weird stuff, but the real one that's outside. Much like how some games use your device's calendar for in-game events, Lunacid uses the phases of the real-life moon to determine parts of the gameplay, including damage modifiers, the ability to access certain secrets, and how fast you gain experience and do magic damage. Certain weapons are directly tied to the phase of the moon and will go from next to useless on a new moon to the strongest weapon of its damage type during the full moon. Some things are just inaccessible during the wrong phase of the moon, such as the one weapon that is capable of making you not only immune from being cursed or blinded, but also is capable of killing death itself in the mausoleum. There's gotta be some consequences if you try to do that second thing, by the way, but it's really cool that they let you do it. The process to get that sword is also quite the ordeal, and by the time you're able to do it, it's not even going to be the strongest weapon in your arsenal if you've been doing other stuff along the way, which is less discounting it, but also talking about the crazy stuff you get later on. This is something of a Souls-like in the best way possible, and that means that there is not only the Not the Dragon Slayer hidden somewhere in the game, but also if you're willing to do a lengthy ordeal, which if anything happens to the game, you will have to start all over, because yes, that happened to me. You can get the Moonlight Greatsword, and it is a beast in this game. And last, but certainly not least, there is Lunacy. Lunacy is the magic-based modifier, which, depending on how conservatively or aggressively you want to play, is something that you should either avoid or intentionally accrue as much as possible to enhance your build. Lunacy is measured by how full this little moon is by your attack bar, and the more full it is, the more experience you gain and the more damage your spells do. The downside is that everyone does a lot more damage to you when your Lunacy is high. Lunacy is gained by casting spells and also certain items, and you gain more Lunacy when you cast more spells during certain phases of the moon, usually the full ones. Wait, you say, wouldn't that be an efficiency issue if you have to cast spells to gain Lunacy, meaning that your earlier spells will do less or even negligible damage, and you'll have less mana later on when you cast your hard-hitting, full Lunacy spells? Well, theoretically yes, but there's a workaround. Not all magic uses mana. Some magic uses blood, which acts as a temporary penalty to your HP, and one of the blood-based spells is Lithomancy. What does Lithomancy do? It brings an inanimate object to life. Do the objects fight for you or do anything practical on your behalf? Of course not. They just scream from the agony and horror of being alive. It's okay, Mr. Claypot, I feel that way too some days. Doing this massively increases your Lunacy at essentially no cost to your health or mana once your health is regenerated. And would you look at that? All the starting areas near teleportation crystals just so happen to have a bunch of inanimate objects around for you to inflict the gift of life upon. Lunacy can be a literal game changer if you're brave enough to use it right in the early game, allowing you to absolutely blitz through the lower levels to build up your character quickly. Having your early game spells hit considerably harder than normal is amazing when you haven't gotten the points into health and strength yet to effectively slug it out in melee with large numbers of enemies for extended periods of time. Enemies hitting too hard after a little too much silliness with a moon? Well, that's totally fine, because on top of restoring your health and mana pools, interacting with teleportation crystals will reset your Lunacy completely. You know what else is just outright lunacy? how easy this final meal prep for this month is. We're gonna do a simple shredded chicken and rice, and I make no exaggeration when I say that when I check my footage when recording the first leg of this, it takes quite literally only 5 minutes to get this going. Get yourself 4 to 5 pounds of chicken breast cutlets, and once they're thawed out, lay them out on a sheet pan to season them. We're doing a little salt, chili powder, paprika, cumin, oregano, and a bit of garlic powder too. Don't worry about seasoning both sides, we're gonna get to that. Now what we're gonna do is get our handy dandy crock pot and lay the first layer of chicken breast seasoned side down. Then we're gonna season the other side right in the pot, and now we can place the next layer of breast cutlets seasoned side up, repeating until they're all in the pot, and now all sides of all chicken breasts have seasoning on them. Finally, slowly pour in 2 cups of chicken broth as to not wash away the spices on the topmost breast, cover the crock pot, and let it go on the low setting for 6 to 8 hours. That's literally all we need to do to the chicken until like right at the very end. Once the chicken is about an hour or so away from being done, let's cook some rice to go with it. All we're gonna do here is get 8 cups of water or more chicken broth if we're feeling fancy. Heck, if you'd like, you can use the leftover broth from the container you opened for the chicken breast and then go the rest of the way with plain old water if you want to. Whatever liquid you're using, get it boiling and then add 4 cups of rice, 1 small jar of your favorite salsa, and then the same spices we used on the chicken. Don't be stingy now. Give everything a good stir before covering and setting on low for 15 to 20 minutes. Then, once that's done, take off the lid, give everything a good stir to help incorporate any excess liquid, and then let it go for another 10 to 15 minutes depending on how much time you think it needs. Once it's done, we're gonna portion this rice out into 8 containers and then start the finishing touches on the chicken. Finishing touches on the chicken is for 1, once it's done, get the lid off the crock pot, turn the crock pot off, and use a couple of forks to gently pull it apart. There should be basically no resistance doing this, and it'll only take a couple minutes of forking to get it mostly shredded. Don't worry about getting every last bit shredded as it'll get more mixed up later. For now, we're going to wash off 2 bunches of cilantro. An effective way of doing so is to just twist the stems right off and wash the leafy stuff we actually want. Then we're gonna chop that up and put it into a bowl. Then we lightly rinse off some limes too, and we're gonna use a cheese grater to grate the zest of the limes into the bowl we just put the chopped cilantro in, which is gonna make our lives a lot easier later on. Save the limes as we're gonna squeeze the juice for the chicken. Once your mostly shredded chicken has had 15 to 20 minutes to rest, add in your green stuff and the juice of the limes right into the crock pot, give that a good stir, and any unshredded bits of chicken you had previously will be probably dealt with by now. Finally, before we portion everything out, give the chicken a little taste and then salt accordingly. Now get your food scale out and start portioning. Depending on how much chicken you started with, we're gonna shoot for between 6 to 10 ounces of meat and juices per portion of rice. Use your food scale to determine how much cooked chicken you have yielded and then divide that by ounces accordingly. This is a hearty meal and also it is cheap. I think this might actually be the cheapest one we've made since we have basically just chicken breast, rice, and a jar of salsa. As I said before, the full recipe and a standalone cooking video complete with the cost and nutritional breakdowns are available 100% for free on patreon.com/charlatanwonder, and I'll pin a direct link into the comments for all of you. Now let's get back to Lunacid. Something about Lunacid that isn't really a gameplay feature directly anyway, nor is it a story feature, is that Lunacid has exceptionally pleasant vibes. I'd argue it's one of those quote-unquote comfy games that scratches the itch of having a good dungeon crawler without being a taxing slog through a dungeon where you're sweating because you're just barely making it through. Maybe it's because this isn't my first go-round with Lunacid, as I played on early access launch all the way up until the point that I ran out of game, and even featured it in IndieWeen 2022, which was just one big video back then and also a bit of a fumble for me. But while you can and will die if you aren't being careful, the game is still fairly easygoing enough to where you can really enjoy all the great music made for it and the scenery around you. I think a place where Lunacid really excels at this is Wing's Rest, the analog for Firelink Shrine in this game. Of all the Souls games and imitators out there, Lunacid, while not even being directly inspired by Souls-likes, is the best at nailing down that relaxing, safe feeling of Firelink Shrine. It's an enemy-free, closed-off area where on top of managing your gear, there's plenty of friendly faces to chat with. Also, as you might have noticed, Wing's Rest is decorated for Halloween, and you can even pick up some candy. Other major areas in the game are also currently decorated for the season, and there's even a new secret boss to be found somewhere in the game that, when I tried taking this guy on, he rocked my world. Like, it wasn't even a real fight. I think a big contributor to the overall comfy vibe is the aesthetic of Lunacid. I know I originally mentioned about Kira being very much a maker of haunted PS1-esque titles, but I think I'll take it a bit further and say that this is very much a Kira distinctive style type of thing, if you know what I mean. You can get a feel for this not just here, but in other titles Kira has made, such as Lost in Vivo, Spookies, and Kira's contribution to DreadX4 The Hunt, Actina 64. Side note here, I love the DreadX collections, and the only reason I don't include them in Indie Ween is because it feels like that would be cheating for my challenge. It's been a couple years since we got the last one, and I really hope that they do another one sometime in the future. Back to Lunacid though. Lunacid's levels are unique and reminiscent of RPG worlds of old. It's low poly, but has modern level design such as levels that loop back on themselves and have lots of verticality to them. Levels feel expansive like the forests, but nothing ever takes an excessively long time to get around, even with my speed being a dump stat for most of the playthrough. And there are a few friendly NPCs that you'll meet on your travels, and each one of them has a unique design and a unique personality to match. Okay, it's lore time. I don't think I'll get too into plot details because, well, while the game does have a lot of world building, it's best experienced through playing the game yourself. There's a whole lot of lore and weapon descriptions, and I'm no Vatividya. Here's a quick and dirty for the world of Lunacid. The world was a fairly normal place until one day an ancient creature that was slumbering at the bottom of the sea decided it was time to wake up and cause the moon to start melting into some magic goo or something. This brought about an age of magic, which turned out to be a lot less cool than you'd expect, as the corruption around the world caused not just the governments, but society as a whole to crumble, with only a handful of feudal kingdoms eking out a meager existence on the surface of the world. In order to help those who survived in this age of cursed magic, someone had the great idea to start dumping things into the big hole the moon made with all its moon goo, including us, the player character. We survive the big fall and start our quest to make it out of the big hole or go to the bottom of it so we can get the fish to fix the moon. That's a journey that will take us through all kinds of spectacular locales inside of this great chasm and introduce us to some interesting characters. The first of which you get to meet is Demi the Demoness. Demi is the one that finds you in Hollow Basin and takes you to Wing's Rest. She also gives you the equivalent of your burial gift later on and is generally inclined to help all those who want to escape the big hole. Then there's Cheryl the Crow, who's the local merchant of Wing's Rest, and on top of being an interesting looking character, is definitely more than she seems. Then there's Etna the Alchemist, who on top of helping you learn alchemy through many strange ingredients you'll find down below, is also helping Clive the Skeleton stay immortal by giving him a crapload of health potions. I can see why too. Clive is the friendliest skeleton around, and he'll tell you all sorts of stories about the world you're in, and even some hints as to what to do next if you're stumped. There's also some great characters outside of Wing's Rest, like the previously mentioned Garrett, who cannot die and therefore seeks glorious violence to help pass time in the big old hole, and on the opposite end of the violence spectrum, there's Daedalus in the Forbidden Library, who has collected all the books that have been thrown down over the years and turned it into a spectacular display. There's a ton of lore in the Forbidden Library area if you're willing to take the time to read it. Finally, there's Patchouli. Patchouli should just be happy I did her quest and didn't use the quest reward from Cheryl's line to give myself a 100% discount at her store. There are quests in Lunacid, and they very much follow the Soulsian tradition of being obscure and things you can easily miss. You might just never find the area where Cheryl has her second shop, and might never find the means to complete her quest even if you do. Daedalus and the Forbidden Library are entirely optional areas if you aren't going for the climb out of the pit ending. And even then, it's easily possible to miss Daedalus in the Forbidden Library altogether. Quests also don't exactly have a log or any tracking elements in this game, so you're just gonna have to figure stuff out. Now, I mentioned the escape ending, but that's not the one I went for. When I completed the game, I got what was called the true ending according to the achievement, but I know that there's much more to be done. On top of the escape ending and the quote-unquote true ending, there's another involving a series of secrets that were first discovered when the game first launched into EA with a corrupted VHS tape. Kira loves putting VHS stuff in their games. I didn't go for that one because that requires getting all the spells in-game, and some of those spells require a lot of farming enemies to get them to drop. Without spoiling too much, the ending I got is a meditation on the nature of dreams and the beings created within them. There's a sort of nostalgic feeling to it, and it ends with saying that there will be no credits here as this is not the end, so much for this being the true ending then. Additionally, something else I like about Lunacid is once the credits roll, you don't have to play the game all over again. If you load the file that you just completed the game on, you just get plopped to right where you were before the final sequence, and you even get the special endgame sword you get with the final boss fight to keep for the rest of your exploration too. My final thoughts on Lunacid are that I love it and cannot recommend it enough. It's a great game with a wonderful world to explore, and if it seems like any of this looked a little easy to you, you can crank the difficulty way up from the default setting I played on. If you're looking for a comfy dungeon crawl with just the right amount of soulsiness, look no further than Lunacid. Also, the music in this game is fantastic, and you can buy the standalone soundtrack if you so desire. So the final total comes to $7.99 for Sonar Shock, then $19.99 for Dread Delusion for $27.98, then All the Fears to Fathom series at $29.96 for all 5 installments, bringing us to $57.94, and finally, Lunacid will set you back for $13.99, bringing our total to $71.93. Or does it? Hail Mary time, baby! You see, having both Lunacid and Dread Delusion this year was no mistake. Both games have a very similar aesthetic and overall vibe, so much so that they actually have a bundle together called the Acid Fantasy Bundle, which when you buy them both in that bundle will save you $6.80, meaning that if you buy all 8 of these games we went over this month without any of them being on a temporary sale or promotion, but as you can buy them any time of year, it would only cost you $65.13 for everything here. Fuck you, AAA pricing models, I did it again! Oh yeah, I said in the first video this IndieWeen that I had a whole alternate list of games for the same price point. I wasn't lying about that. If you aren't feeling any of these games but still want to grab a bunch of indie games for less than the price of a AAA release, you could do Crow County, Hollow Body, Endoparasitic 2, and Zero Protocol for a total of $60.96. These are all games that for one reason or another, like coming out too recently to be around when I was considering titles and calculating prices, or me wanting to cover something else that they just didn't make the cut this year. There's nothing wrong with them, they're all great games, and I think I'm going to reserve the right to feature any of these for next year's IndieWeen. Personally, as far as I am concerned, the next time some clown tells you that gaming is dying, show them these lists and all the cool games within. It's not gaming that's dying, it's bloated, monolithic producers that see games as investment vehicles rather than the medium in which artistic creation meets skilled programming to give the audience an interactive and memorable experience. Those goons are dying. Games will survive with or without however many A's we're throwing at the output of megacorps these days. So, just a bit of housekeeping before we sign off here. I'm not going to be super active during November for a few reasons. One of them being that after all the chaos of August and September, I'm dropping everything I'm doing and focusing on getting all those Halloween and July patches and aprons out to everyone who pledged for those gifts. Just to catch everyone up that doesn't see the weekly progress updates on Patreon, I normally have everything buttoned up for Halloween July by the end of July or a week into August, which normally gives me all of August and September to get everything mailed out before I need to work on IndieWeen in October. Well, silly me, for one, I extended Halloween in July to all of August too. Losing a month of time, I could send everything out and then get ready for IndieWeen. And while I was originally planning to have a relaxed upload schedule for September to focus on fulfillment, a bunch of dates got changed around for me, and my September went from relaxed to very, very hectic. Then of course, on top of the outward reason of sticking it to AAA pricing models, IndieWeen's secondary purpose is for me to work hard to improve my video creating speed by trying new techniques and improving what I already know works to essentially do a mini Halloween in July all at once instead of how I normally do Halloween in July, which is making one extra video a month to bank away throughout the year leading up to July. The main goal of IndieWeen's training arc, so to speak, is to get better at making videos so that my prep for Halloween in July will be less impactful on my upload schedule for the first half of the year. This year in particular, I tried to focus on better labeling practices for my recordings and trying new ways to write and edit the scripts of these videos. This channel is just as much of a craft as it is my passion, and you can always be improving your craft. Now, that's a lot of words just to say that you're not going to see me upload a video until like the last weekend of November. I hope. Setting dates for big videos is always a dangerous game, but I really want the patron voted video on Pathologic 2 to be out in time for December so that I can take it a bit easy around Christmas. Patrons, thank you as always, and for the yearly pledges in July, you're gonna start finally getting your stuff very soon. I am so sorry that it has been taking so long. I have all the patches I need, I have all the aprons made and prepped for painting your names on them, and the packaging and thank you cards all just staring at me in my office as I scramble to make this all work. I just need the time to mail the damn things, and now I am making that time. So let's sign off. Remember that no matter what you do, be it gardening, making jewelry, or writing stories, what you do should never be called content. It is art. Content is a word that's been twisted into meaning a means to grind up all your skills, passions, and aspirations into a gray slop that's meant for nothing more than to make a line go up for someone else's benefit, and your art in no way deserves that. Art is sacred. Art is inalienably a reflection of its creator by the very act of being made, and in no way do you deserve to be reduced down to content. So go out there and fight against the contentification of everything by fighting for your art. Stay saucy, everyone. Alright, I think if I don't bother him too much, he will maintain how long he is. Alright, I can't get close. I'm gonna try to zoom in. Ooh, is he dreaming? I think he's dreaming. Wait, look at the mouth. Ooh, that's a boy having a dream. He's not going to do it again, is he? I don't even want to go up and try for a pet. He looks just too relaxed. Hopefully this doesn't mean he screams all night if he's getting his sleep now. Hey Frisk, I think we're forgetting about something. Wait, what could it be? Oh. Right. Yeet!